The scent of rain and wet earth filled the air as Keira pressed herself against the rough bark of an ancient oak, her arms wrapped protectively around the 3 small bodies huddled against her chest. The youngest, barely 4 years old, whimpered softly, and she immediately placed a gentle hand over his mouth, her own heart hammering so loudly she was certain their pursuers would hear it. "Shh, little one," she breathed, her voice barely a whisper against his dark curls. "I've got you. I've got all of you." If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. Through the dense forest canopy, she could hear them, boots crushing fallen leaves, voices harsh with determination, the metallic click of weapons being readied. They were close, too close. Her wolf, weak and fractured as it was, whined pitifully inside her, offering no strength, no comfort, just the familiar ache of something broken that would never heal. "There are tracks here," a man's voice called out, rough with triumph. "Fresh ones. The Omega can't have gone far, not with the runts slowing her down. Runts." The word struck like a physical blow, but Keira bit down on her tongue, tasting copper. She would not let them hear her pain. She would not let them have these children. They weren't hers. Not by blood, not by birth. Her body had made certain of that years ago, when the fever had stolen her fertility along with her future, but they were hers in every way that mattered. Lily, 8 years old with eyes too old for her face. Marcus, 6, who still flinched at loud noises. And sweet baby Finn, who had known nothing but hunger before Keira had found him abandoned in a ditch 3 moons past. She had been marked as defective the day the pack healer confirmed what her body had been trying to tell her for years. Barren, broken, less than Omega. In the Blackwater Pack, where bloodlines meant everything and children were currency, she had become invisible, worthless, until she had started noticing the others, the forgotten ones, the orphans and the unwanted, the children deemed too weak or too damaged to be worth feeding. She had begun slipping them food from her meager rations, offering comfort in the dark corners of the pack house where no one else looked. And then Alpha Ronin had discovered what she was doing. A defective Omega wasting pack resources on worthless pups, he had snarled, his breath reeking of whiskey and rage. "I should have driven you out years ago. Consider this your mercy. You have until sunrise to disappear, or I'll kill every runt you've been harboring and make you watch." She had run, gathered the 3 youngest children she knew wouldn't survive without her, and fled into the night. That had been 2 days ago. 2 days of running, hiding, rationing the small amount of food she'd managed to steal. 2 days of the children's, frightened questions that she couldn't answer. Where are we going? Are the bad men going to find us? I'm hungry. I know, sweetheart, she had whispered each time, pressing kisses to their foreheads. I know, but we're going to be safe. I promise. A promise she wasn't sure she could keep. The footsteps grew louder. Keira's breath caught as a shadow fell across their hiding spot. Through a gap in the tree roots, she could see boots. Black leather. Expensive. Not Blackwater Pack. These were bounty hunters. Ronan had put a price on her head. She's here somewhere. Another voice said. This one smoother, more calculated. An Omega traveling alone with 3 human-smelling pups? She'll fetch a good price. Someone will pay handsomely for those children. And the Omega herself, well, even defective ones have their uses. Rage, white-hot and unfamiliar, blazed through Keira's veins. She had accepted her own worthlessness long ago. But these children, her children, they were not commodities to be sold. They were not defective. They were precious, perfect, and loved. Her wolf stirred, not with strength but with desperation. A mother's instinct that transcended the broken bond between human and beast. If they found the children, she would fight. She would die fighting. Over here! The shout came from too close, and Keira's blood turned to ice. I see something behind the oak. This was it. She shifted, placing her body between the hunters and the children, preparing for the inevitable. Lily grabbed her arm, her small fingers digging in with surprising strength. Don't let them take us, the little girl whispered, and there were tears streaming down her cheeks. Please, Keira, don't let them. Never, Keira promised, her voice fierce despite her terror. Never. The shadow moved toward them. Keira could see the glint of silver in his hand. a blade designed to cut through wolf hide like parchment. She braced herself, pulling the children tighter against her body, and opened her mouth to scream, to snarl, to do something, anything. And then the world exploded, not with violence directed at her, but around her. A massive shape materialized from the forest shadows, moving with a speed that defied comprehension. One moment the hunter was reaching for their hiding spot. The next, he was airborne, his scream cut short as he crashed into a tree 15 feet away. The other hunters reacted immediately, shouting, drawing weapons. But they didn't stand a chance. The creature that had emerged from the darkness was unlike anything Keira had ever seen. Massive didn't begin to describe it. This was a wolf form that spoke of ancient bloodlines and pure, undiluted power. Midnight black fur rippled over muscle that seemed carved from stone, eyes that burned like molten gold fixed on the hunters with predatory focus. An alpha. Not just any alpha. The scent that rolled off him in waves made Kira's fractured wolf sit up and take notice for the first time in years. Pine and winter frost, sharp and clean and utterly dominant. It was the scent of a king. He moved through the hunters like a force of nature. Not killing, she realized with shock, but incapacitating, disarming, sending them fleeing back through the forest with their tails between their legs and terror written across their faces. It was over in less than a minute, and then the massive wolf turned to face her. Kira's arms tightened instinctively around the children, her body still positioned protectively in front of them. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to submit, to bare her throat. This was an apex predator, an alpha so powerful that her broken wolf could barely comprehend his existence. But she would not abandon these children, even if it cost her everything. The great wolf took a step forward, and Keira felt Finn's small body trembling against her chest. She made a sound, something between a whimper and a growl, the only warning she was capable of giving. "Stay. Back. These are mine. You cannot have them." The wolf stopped, his massive head tilting slightly. And then, impossibly, he lowered himself. Not to attack, but to crouch, making his enormous form less threatening. Those burning gold eyes met hers, and Keira felt something shift in the air between them. Recognition. No, not just recognition. The mate bond slammed into her with the force of a physical blow. Not the gentle pull of possibility, but an absolute certainty that crashed through every defense, every wall she had built around her broken heart. This was hers. This impossible, powerful, terrifying creature was her mate. And from the way those golden eyes widened, the way the great wolf's entire body went rigid with shock, he felt it too. Finn chose that moment to peer around Kira's shoulder, his small face smudged with dirt and tears. "Is he gonna hurt us?" the little boy asked, his voice trembling but curious. The wolf's gaze shifted to the child, and something extraordinary happened. The fierce predator softened, just a fraction. The gold in his eyes warmed from blazing fire to something gentler, protective. He made a sound, a low rumble that somehow conveyed reassurance. Then he began to shift. Keira had seen transformations before, but never like this. The change was fluid, seamless, as natural as breathing. Fur melted into bronze skin stretched over powerful muscle. Bones reformed with barely a sound. And where the massive wolf had crouched, a man now knelt. He was stunning in a way that made her throat tighten. Tall, even kneeling, with broad shoulders and a warrior's build. His midnight black hair fell past his shoulders, streaked with silver at the temples that somehow only enhanced his appeal. His face was all sharp angles and strong lines, with high cheekbones and a jaw shadowed with stubble. But it was his eyes that held her captive, the same burning gold in human form, watching her with an intensity that made her feel seen in a way she hadn't been in years. He was also completely naked, but he seemed utterly unconcerned, his focus entirely on her and the children. "You're safe," he said, and his voice was like thunder rolling across mountains, deep and resonant and absolute. "I am Caspian, Alpha King of the Wintermoon Territory." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. You are under my protection now. No one will harm you or your young. You're young. He had called them hers without question, without hesitation. Something in Kira's chest cracked open, spilling warmth she thought she'd forgotten how to feel. "They're not," she started, then stopped. How did you explain to an Alpha King that you were a defective Omega squatting in his forest with stolen children? They are yours, he said firmly, as though reading her thoughts. I can see it in the way you hold them, in the way they trust you. Biology is irrelevant to a mother's heart. The words struck so deep that Keira couldn't breathe. This stranger, this king, had seen in an instant what her entire pack had, refused to acknowledge for years. That love made family, that worth wasn't measured in fertility or bloodlines, that she was a mother, regardless of what her broken body could or couldn't do. Marcus, braver than his 6 years should allow, peeked around Kira's other side. Are you really a king? He asked, wonder temporarily overriding his fear. Caspian's stern expression softened into something resembling a smile. I am, he confirmed, which means I can make sure you and your family have food, shelter, and safety. Would you like that? Can we trust him? Lily whispered, her question directed at Keira but loud enough for everyone to hear. Keira studied the man before her, this Alpha King who had appeared from nowhere to save them. Every logical part of her brain screamed caution. She knew nothing about him. Kings were dangerous, unpredictable. They took what they wanted and disposed of what they didn't need. But her wolf, fractured and weak as it was, thrummed with absolute formation, certainty. Mate. Safe. Home. And the way he looked at her children, not with disgust or dismissal but with genuine concern, spoke louder than any words. Yes, she heard herself say. I think we can. Caspian's golden eyes flashed with something that looked like relief and satisfaction. He rose to his feet in one fluid motion, and Keira was struck again by his sheer size, the raw power barely contained in his human form. My warriors are nearby, he said. I'll have them bring clothes and supplies. Can you walk? Or shall I carry the little ones? We can walk, Keira said quickly, her pride flaring despite her exhaustion. She had been running on empty for 2 days, but she would not be weak in front of this king. She would not give him reason to reconsider his protection. Something flickered across his face. Understanding, maybe. Or admiration. Then walk beside me, he said. As my guests, not my prisoners. There's a difference. He turned and let out a howl that echoed through the forest, a sound of such pure authority that Keira felt it reverberate in her bones. Within minutes, 4 wolves emerged from the trees, all of them massive, all of them radiating power that marked them as the king's personal guard. They shifted to human form, and one of them, a blonde female with shrewd green eyes, immediately produced clothing from a pack Keira hadn't noticed. She handed the garments to Caspian with a slight bow, her gaze flickering curiously to Keira and the children. Thank you, Soren, Caspian said, pulling on the simple black shirt and pants with efficient movements. Once dressed, he turned back to Keira, his expression gentle. This is Soren, my beta and second in command. Soren, this is E. He paused, realization crossing his features. I don't know your name. Keira, she supplied quietly, acutely aware of how shabby she must look. Her clothes were torn and filthy, her hair a tangled mess, her face probably smudged with dirt and fear. Keira of no pack. She saw Soren's eyebrows rise at that admission, saw the other guards exchange glances. A packless Omega was the lowest of the low, barely above rogue status. But Caspian's expression didn't change. Keira, he repeated, and the way he said her name, with reverence and warmth, sent shivers down her spine. And your children? Lily, Marcus, and Finn, she said, her hand coming to rest on each small head in turn. They're mine. Then they are welcome in my territory, as are you. He looked at Soren. Send word to the castle. Prepare the East Wing guest quarters. 3 rooms, connected. And inform the kitchens we'll need a meal suitable for young ones upon our arrival. 3 rooms? Soren asked, her tone carefully neutral but her eyes sharp with questions. 3, Caspian confirmed. The children should have their own space, but Keira will want them close. Am I correct? He directed the last question to Keira. She nodded, stunned that he understood so, instinctively what she needed. Yes, I need to be able to hear them. Then it settled. He moved closer, and Kira's breath caught as his scent washed over her again. Up close, it was even more intoxicating, cutting through the exhaustion and fear to ignite something warm and alive in her chest. "The castle is a 2-hour walk from here, but we can go slowly." The little ones looked tired. "We can keep up," Lily said defensively, straightening her small shoulders in a show of strength that made Keira's heart ache. This 8-year-old child had already learned that showing weakness was dangerous. Caspian crouched down until he was at Lily's eye level. "I'm sure you can," he said seriously. "But even the strongest warriors rest when they need to. There's no shame in accepting help, young one. Would you allow me to carry your little brother? He looks very heavy." Finn, who weighed perhaps 30 pounds soaking wet, giggled at the description. "I'm not heavy." "No?" Caspian's lips twitched with amusement. "Well, perhaps I need the practice. I don't often get to carry cubs. Will you help me learn?" The gentle manipulation was masterful. Finn nodded enthusiastically, reaching his small arms toward the king without a trace of fear. Caspian lifted him effortlessly, settling the little boy against his broad chest with a carefulness that spoke of respect for his precious cargo. "There," Caspian said. "How am I doing?" "Good," Finn pronounced, his head already drooping against the king's shoulder. "You're warm. Sleep if you need to," Caspian murmured. "You're safe now." The sight of this powerful alpha king cradling her smallest child with such tenderness did something to Keira's carefully constructed defenses. A crack appeared, spreading like frost across glass, threatening to shatter everything she'd used to protect herself. She couldn't afford to hope. She couldn't afford to believe this was real. And yet, when Caspian's eyes met hers over Finn's dark curls, when she saw the fierce protectiveness blazing in those golden depths, she felt the ice around her heart begin to melt. "Shall we?" he asked gently, offering his free hand to Marcus, who took it after a questioning glance at Keira. They walked through the forest as the sun climbed higher, burning away the morning mist. Soren and the other guards formed a protective perimeter, their movements silent and efficient. Lily walked close to Keira's side, her small hand clutching the fabric of Keira's torn skirt, while Marcus chattered quietly with Caspian about trees and birds and everything his 6-year-old mind found fascinating. Caspian listened with genuine attention, asking questions, encouraging the little boy's observations. There was nothing forced or false about his interest. He treated Marcus like a person worthy of respect, not a burden to be tolerated. "You're good with children," Keira ventured after a while, her curiosity overcoming her caution. Caspian glanced at her, something unreadable flickering across his features. "I haven't had much opportunity to spend time with young ones," he admitted. "My position is isolating, but I've always believed children deserve respect and protection. They're our future, regardless of their circumstances." There was weight behind those words, a story Keira didn't yet know. But before she could probe further, they emerged from the forest into a clearing, and the sight before her stole her breath. Wintermoon Castle rose against the mountain backdrop like something from a dream. Not the cold, forbidding fortress she'd expected, but a sprawling structure of pale stone that seemed to grow organically from the landscape. Towers reached toward the sky, banners snapping in the wind. Gardens spread before it, lush even in early autumn, and beyond, she could see a thriving town, smoke rising from chimneys, the sounds of life and commerce drifting on the breeze. This was prosperity. Safety. Power used to build rather than destroy. "Welcome," Caspian said softly, "to your new home." Home. The word was a dangerous promise, one Keira didn't dare believe. But as they crossed the threshold into the castle, as servants rushed forward with concern and curiosity rather than contempt, as Finn stirred awake and whispered, "Are we really safe now?" Against Caspian's shoulder, Keira felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Hope. The guest quarters in the East Wing were nothing like Keira had imagined. She had expected stark, functional rooms, the bare minimum a king might offer to unexpected guests. Instead, she found herself standing in a sun-drenched suite that spoke of care and consideration. 3 bedrooms connected to a central sitting area, each space furnished with plush beds piled high with soft furs and quilts. A fireplace already crackled with warmth, and on a low table sat platters of food that made her stomach clench with desperate hunger. Fresh bread, roasted meat, fruits she hadn't seen in years, and sweet cakes that made Finn's eyes widen with wonder. "Eat," Caspian said gently, setting the little boy down. "All of you," There's plenty, and more will come if you need it. The children didn't need to be told twice. They descended on the food with the barely controlled desperation of those who had known true hunger. Keira moved to stop them, to remind them of manners, to ration, but Caspian's hand on her arm halted her. "Let them eat," he murmured. "There's no scarcity here. They're safe to fill their bellies." His touch sent electricity racing up her arm, the mate bond humming with recognition and want. Keira pulled away gently, wrapping her arms around herself as though she could contain the swirling confusion inside her. She started, but her vision blurred suddenly. The adrenaline that had kept her moving for 2 days was crashing, leaving nothing but exhaustion in its wake. Strong hands caught her before she hit the floor. Caspian lifted her, effortlessly, carrying her to a cushioned chair near the fire. His scent enveloped her, pine and frost and something uniquely him, and her broken wolf whined with pleasure. "When did you last eat?" he asked, his voice carrying a dangerous edge. "When did you last sleep?" "I'm fine," Keira insisted, even as her body betrayed her with trembling limbs and swimming vision. "The children need." "The children are eating," he interrupted, his golden eyes blazing with an intensity that pinned her in place. "Soren has already called for a healer to check them over. Now, I'm asking about you. When, Keira?" The command in his voice, the alpha dominance, should have made her cower. Instead, it cracked something open inside her. The truth spilled out before she could stop it. 3 days since I ate, 2 since I slept. I gave everything to the children. They needed it more. A low growl rumbled from his chest, not directed at her but at the circumstances that had brought her to this state. "That ends now," he said firmly. He moved to the table, returning with a plate piled with food and a cup of water. "Eat. That's not a request." That Keira wanted to refuse, wanted to maintain some shred of pride. But her body made the decision for her, her hand reaching for the bread with shaking fingers. The first bite tasted like heaven, and she had to force herself to chew slowly, to not make herself sick after days of near starvation. Caspian watched her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Satisfaction, yes, but also anger, fierce and protective. "Who did this to you?" he asked quietly. "Who put a mother and her children in a position where you were starving and running for your lives?" Keira swallowed, the food suddenly ash in her mouth. This was the moment where she would have to explain. Where the fairy tale would end and reality would crash back in. "Alpha Ronin of the Blackwater Pack," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "He's the one who sent the hunters. He put a price on my head." "Why?" The single word was sharp as a blade. Keira looked down at her plate, unable to meet those piercing golden eyes. "Because I'm defective, barren. A worthless Omega who was wasting pack resources by caring for children that nobody else wanted. He gave me until sunrise to disappear or watch them die." Her hands clenched in her lap. "So I ran." The silence that followed was deafening. Keira risked a glance up and found Caspian's expression transformed into something cold and lethal. His eyes had shifted to that burning gold that signaled his wolf was very close to the surface. "Defective," he repeated, and the word dripped with contempt. "He called you defective." "It's true," Keira said quickly, needing him to understand before he made promises he couldn't keep. "I can't have children, Your Majesty. The fever that swept through our pack 6 years ago, it left me barren. My wolf is broken, barely there. I'm not a proper Omega. I'm not—" "Stop." The command was absolute, silencing her mid-sentence. Caspian moved to crouch before her chair, bringing his face level with hers. "Listen to me very carefully, Keira. Your ability to conceive has nothing to do with your worth. Nothing. Do you understand?" Tears burned behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "You don't understand. In pack hierarchy, an Omega who can't provide heirs is useless. You're a woman who saved 3 children from death," he interrupted fiercely. "You're a mother who starved herself to keep her young fed. You're a warrior who fought off exhaustion and fear to keep running when most would have given up. You are anything but useless, Keira." The tears spilled over despite her best efforts. "But I can't give you heirs," she whispered. And there it was, the truth that made this whole situation impossible. The mate bond, I felt it too, but I can't be your queen. You need someone who can continue your bloodline, who can— I need someone who sees, beyond bloodlines and tradition, Caspian said, his voice gentling even as his eyes remained intense. I need someone who understands that worth isn't measured in what your body can or cannot do. He reached up, catching a tear on his thumb with heartbreaking tenderness. I have nephews, Keira. 3 of them, children of my younger brother who died defending our borders. They will inherit my throne if I have no children of my own. The succession is secure. Hope, dangerous and fragile, flickered in her chest. But the pack will accept what I choose, he said firmly. And I choose. He paused, something vulnerable crossing his features. I'd like the chance to know you, Keira, to know your children, to see if what we both felt in that forest is real or just the bond's initial pull. And if it's real? She asked, barely breathing. If the bond is true? A slow smile curved his lips, transforming his stern features into something breathtaking. Then, we'll figure it out together. One day at a time. No pressure, no expectations, just possibility. Before Keira could respond, Finn's sleepy voice interrupted from across the room. Keira? I'm tired. She moved to rise, to tend to the little boy, but Caspian was faster. He crossed to where Finn had curled up on the soft rug, the child's eyes already drooping despite his full belly. Let's get you to bed, little warrior, Caspian said, lifting Finn with the same careful gentleness he'd shown in the forest. He glanced at Lily and Marcus, who were also fighting sleep where they sat. All of you, time to rest. What followed was a domestic scene so surreal that Keira could barely process it. Caspian, the alpha king of Wintermoon, personally carried each child to their beds, tucking them in with a patience that made her throat tight. He answered Marcus's drowsy questions about the castle, assured Lily that guards would be posted outside their door, and sat with Finn until the little boy's breathing evened into sleep. When he finally emerged from Finn's room, Keira was still standing by the fire, unable to make sense of what she was witnessing. You didn't have to do that, she said softly. I'm sure you have royal duties, important matters. Nothing is more important than ensuring your family feels safe, he replied, and the conviction in his voice left no room for argument. He moved to stand before her, close enough that she could feel his warmth but not touching, respecting the space she needed. Keira, I need you to understand something. From the moment I scented you in that forest, from the moment the bond snapped into place, you became my priority, you and those children. Why? The question burst from her. You don't know me. You don't owe me anything. Why would you risk so much for a broken Omega and 3 children who aren't even... Stop calling yourself broken, he said, his voice carrying a hint of alpha command that made her wolf sit up and take notice. Then, more gently, please, you're not broken, Keira. You're one of the strongest people I've ever met. I can't even shift properly anymore, she confessed, the shame of it burning in her chest. My wolf is barely there. Half the time I can't hear her at all. I'm weak, Your Majesty. Damaged. Caspian, he corrected. And your wolf may be quiet, but she's still there. I can sense her, even if you can't always feel her presence. He took a careful step closer. May I try something? Keira's heart hammered, but she nodded. Caspian raised his hand slowly, telegraphing his movement, before placing his palm gently over her heart. The contact was electric, the mate bond flaring to life between them like a struck match. But more than that, Keira felt something stir inside her, something she hadn't felt in years. Her wolf, not broken or fractured, but sleeping, dormant, and at the touch of her mate, slowly beginning to wake. A gasp escaped her lips as she felt the connection strengthen, felt her wolf stretch and yawn like someone emerging from a long hibernation. It wasn't the full, robust presence she'd known before the fever, but it was more than she'd felt in years. She's there, Caspian murmured, wonder in his voice. She's just been resting, waiting. Waiting for what? Keira whispered, tears streaming freely now. His golden eyes met hers, blazing with an intensity that stole her breath. For her mate. The truth of it resonated through her entire being. Her wolf hadn't been broken or damaged beyond repair. She'd been in a state of dormancy, conserving what little energy remained, waiting for the one thing that could bring her back to life, the fated mate bond. I don't understand, Keira said. even as her wolf pressed against her consciousness with more strength than she'd felt in years. The healer said the fever damaged me permanently. That I would never— Healers don't know everything, Caspian said softly. His hand remained over her heart, warm and steady. The mate bond is one of the most powerful forces in our world. It can heal wounds we thought were permanent, bridge gaps we thought were impossible. His thumb stroked gentle circles against her chest, the gesture unconscious and intimate. I'm not saying you'll suddenly be able to conceive, Keira. I'm not making false promises. But your wolf isn't broken. She's been protecting you, waiting for safety, for home, for him. The unspoken words hung between them. A knock at the door interrupted the moment, and Caspian stepped back with visible reluctance. That will be the healer, he said, his voice slightly rough. To check on the children. The woman who entered was ancient, her hair white as snow, but her amber eyes were sharp and knowing. She bowed slightly to Caspian, then turned her penetrating gaze on Keira. So, she said, her voice raspy but warm, this is the Omega who has caused such a stir in our king's chest. She smiled at Kira's startled expression. Oh yes, dear. The bond snap was felt by every sensitive wolf in a 5-mile radius. Quite the dramatic entrance you made. Elder Mira, Caspian said, and there was genuine affection in his tone. This is Keira and her children. The young ones are sleeping, but I'd like you to examine them when they wake. Ensure they're healthy. Of course. Mira's gaze traveled over Keira with professional assessment. And what of their mother? She looks ready to fall over. I'm fine, Keira protested weakly. She hasn't eaten properly in 3 days or slept in 2, Caspian said, his expression stern. She gave all her resources to the children. Mira made a disapproving sound. Noble but foolish. You can't care for young ones if you collapse from exhaustion. She moved closer, and Keira found herself subjected to a thorough examination. The healer's experienced hands checking her pulse, her temperature, the state of her wolf. When Mira's fingers touched Keira's lower abdomen, the old healer's eyes widened slightly. Interesting, she murmured. What? Keira asked, alarm spiking through her. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong, child, Mira assured her. Quite the opposite. Your wolf is stronger than you think. Dormant, yes, but not damaged. The mate bond is already working to strengthen her. She glanced at Caspian. Your Majesty, your presence is having a significant effect. The bond is quite powerful. Can she heal completely? Caspian asked, and the hope in his voice made Keira's chest ache. Mira considered this carefully. The fertility issue is complex. The fever caused scarring that may or may not reverse with time and the bond's influence. It's possible, but I won't make false promises. She turned to Keira. However, your wolf will certainly grow stronger. You may even regain the ability to shift, given time and the right support. The possibility, however slim, was more than Keira had dared hope for in years. Thank you, she whispered. Rest, Mira ordered. Real rest. In a proper bed. Let your body recover. Let your wolf begin to heal. And let your mate. She cast a meaningful glance at Caspian. Help you. That's what the bond is for. After the healer departed with instructions to return in the morning, silence fell between Keira and Caspian. The weight of everything that had happened in the past few hours pressed down on her. The attack, the rescue, the mate bond, the impossible hope that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as broken as she'd believed. You should rest, Caspian said finally. I'll post guards outside your door. You and the children are completely safe here. Wait, Keira said as he turned to leave. I need to know. What happens now? Am I your prisoner? Your responsibility? What am I to you? Caspian turned back, and the expression on his face made her breath catch. Raw, vulnerable, utterly sincere. You're my mate, he said simply. What that means, how it develops, that's up to both of us to decide. But know this, Keira. I will protect you. I will protect your children. Not out of obligation, but because from the moment I caught your scent in that forest, my wolf recognized you as ours. And what is ours, we defend with our last breath. He crossed back to her, moving slowly enough that she could retreat if she wanted. When he stood before her, He reached out and tucked a strand of tangled hair behind her ear with heartbreaking gentleness. "I can't bear children," she whispered again, needing him to truly understand. "I may never be able to give you heirs of your blood." The smile that curved his lips was soft and genuine. "Then I'll protect yours," he replied. "Lily, Marcus, and Finn, if you'll allow it, I would be honored to stand as their guardian, to ensure they grow up safe, educated, and loved. They don't need to be of my blood to be precious to me." The declaration shattered the last of Keira's defenses. A sob broke from her chest, and then Caspian's arms were around her, pulling her against his broad chest as she cried. Not delicate, pretty tears, but the raw, ugly sobs of someone who had been holding everything together for far too long. He held her through it all, one hand stroking her hair, the other pressed firmly against her back, grounding her. He murmured soft reassurances in a language she didn't understand but felt in her bones. His scent surrounded her, chasing away the fear and exhaustion and replacing it with safety. When the storm finally passed, Keira found herself still wrapped in his arms, her face pressed against his chest. She should pull away, should maintain some dignity, but his warmth was intoxicating, his strength a shelter she hadn't known she desperately needed. "I'm sorry," she mumbled against his shirt. "I didn't mean to fall apart." "You're allowed to fall apart," he replied, his voice rumbling through his chest. "That's what mates are for. You hold each other up when the world becomes too heavy." Mates. The word still felt surreal. Yesterday she had been a worthless, broken, Omega fleeing for her life. Today she was standing in a king's embrace, being told she was valued, wanted, protected. "This doesn't feel real," she confessed. "I keep waiting to wake up back in the forest, cold and hungry and running." Caspian's arms tightened around her. "It's real. I'm real. And I'm not going anywhere." He pulled back just enough to look down at her, his golden eyes serious. "I know this is overwhelming. I know you have no reason to trust me beyond the bond. But I'm asking you to stay, Keira. Stay here, where you're safe. Let me prove that this is real, that you and your children have found a home." "For how long?" she asked. "Until you find a proper mate?" "Until—" "You are my proper mate," he interrupted firmly. "The moon goddess doesn't make mistakes. She brought you to me for a reason, and I intend to honor that gift." His thumb traced the curve of her cheek. "But I won't rush you. I won't demand anything you're not ready to give. We have time to let this bond develop naturally." Keira searched his face, looking for deception or ulterior motives. She found only sincerity and a vulnerability that surprised her. This powerful Alpha King was opening his heart to her, offering not just protection but partnership. "Okay," she whispered. "We'll stay, for now." The smile that broke across his face was like sunrise, brilliant and warm. "For now," he agreed. "That's all I ask." He escorted her to the largest bedroom, the one clearly intended for her. The bed was enormous, piled with soft furs and pillows that looked like clouds. A fresh nightgown had been laid out, along with a basin of warm water and clean towels. "Everything you need should be here," Caspian said from the doorway. "If you require anything else, pull the cord by the bed, and a servant will come immediately." He hesitated, clearly reluctant to leave. "Sleep well, Keira. You're safe. Here, I give you my word." "Caspian?" she called, as he turned to go. When he looked back, she managed a small smile. "Thank you. For everything." The warmth in his returning smile wrapped around her like a physical embrace. "Sleep, little mate. Tomorrow we begin figuring out what our future looks like." After he left, Keira stood in the center of the opulent room, trying to process everything that had happened. She moved to check on each child, finding them sleeping deeply, peacefully, their small faces relaxed in a way they hadn't been in weeks. Safe. They were safe. And so was she. As Keira finally crawled into the impossibly soft bed, wearing the clean nightgown, her belly full for the first time in days, she felt her wolf stir again. Not broken, not fractured, just sleeping, waiting for this moment, waiting for home. Her last thought before exhaustion claimed her was of golden eyes and a smile that promised safety, acceptance, and the radical idea that maybe, just maybe, she was exactly where she was meant to be. Keira woke to sunlight streaming through windows she didn't recognize, and the disorienting softness of a bed that felt like sleeping on clouds. For a moment, panic seized her, the instinct to run, to protect, to hide. Then memory crashed back, and with it, the impossible reality of where she was. Wintermoon Castle. The Alpha King's protection. Safe. She sat up slowly, her body aching in ways that spoke of days of running finally catching up with her. But beneath the soreness was something else, something she hadn't felt in years. Her wolf, present and aware, humming with contentment at the lingering scent of pine and frost that permeated the room. Their mate had been here while she slept. The thought should have alarmed her. Instead, warmth bloomed in her chest, the mate bond purring with satisfaction at his proximity even in sleep. A soft knock at the door pulled her from her thoughts. "Come in," she called, her voice still rough from exhaustion and tears. The door opened to reveal a young woman with warm brown eyes and a kind smile. She carried a tray laden with food and a stack of clothing over her arm. "Good morning, my lady," she said with a slight bow. "I'm Alara, assigned to attend to your needs. His Majesty thought you might appreciate breaking fast in your chambers rather than navigating the Great Hall just yet." My lady. The title felt strange, foreign. Keira had been called many things in her life, most of them unkind, but never that. "Thank you," Keira managed, watching as Alara set the tray on a small table near the window. "Is Caspian His Majesty, is he?" "The king has been in council since dawn," Alara replied, her expression knowing. "But he left strict instructions that you were not to be disturbed until you woke naturally. He also requested updates the moment you did wake." She smiled. "He's been quite concerned, checking in every hour." The image of the powerful Alpha King interrupting his counsel to check on her made Kira's cheeks warm. And the children? Still sleeping soundly. Elder Mira examined them earlier, very carefully so as not to wake them. She declared all three healthy, if undernourished. They'll need regular meals and rest, but they should recover quickly. Alara began laying out the clothes. His Majesty also had the seamstresses work through the night to prepare appropriate clothing for you and the children. These should fit until we can take proper measurements. Keira ran her fingers over the soft fabric. Simple but well made, a far cry from the threadbare rags she'd been wearing. He didn't have to do all this. With respect, my lady, he very much did. Alara's expression turned serious. The mate bond is sacred among our kind. When a king finds his fated mate, the entire kingdom celebrates. You're not just a guest here, you're our future queen. The words hit like a physical blow. "No," Keira said quickly, rising from the bed. "That's not I can't be queen. You're the king's mate," Alara said gently but firmly. "That makes you queen, regardless of any other circumstances." She hesitated, then added softly, "Forgive me for being bold, my lady, but I've served in this castle for 10 years. I've watched our king grow more isolated, more burdened, carrying the weight of his position alone. In one day, you've brought more light to his eyes than I've seen in years. Whatever you think you can't offer, what you've already given is more valuable than you know." Kira's throat tightened with emotion she couldn't name. Before she could respond, excited voices erupted from the sitting room. The children were awake. She rushed out to find all three of them gathered around the low table, where an even more elaborate breakfast had been laid out. Finn was bouncing on his toes. Marcus's eyes were wide with wonder, and even cautious Lily looked amazed. "Keira!" Finn shouted, launching himself at her. "Look at all, the food, and there are sweet cakes and everything." Keira caught him, pulling him close and breathing in his little boy scent. Real. This was real. "I see that, little love. Have you eaten?" "We waited for you," Lily said, her serious eyes finding Kira's. "Is it really okay to eat all this?" The question, asked with such careful hope, made Kira's heart ache. These children had learned that hunger was normal, that food was a privilege that could be revoked. Teaching them they were safe, that abundance wouldn't disappear, would take time. "It's really okay," Keira assured her, kneeling to embrace all three children at once. "Eat as much as you want. There's more if you need it." They settled around the table together, and Keira watched her children eat with an enthusiasm that brought tears to her eyes. Marcus kept sneaking pieces of sweet cake when he thought no one was looking. Finn got jam all over his face and laughed about it. Even Lily, always so controlled, reached for, seconds without fear. "The king is nice," Marcus announced around a mouthful of bread. "He told me about the horses in the stables. He said maybe I could see them later if you said it was okay. He carried me," Finn added, "and he wasn't even scared of how heavy I am." Lily remained quiet, but Keira noticed the little girl watching the door, as if expecting someone to burst in and take it all away. Trust would take time for all of them. A different knock sounded, more authoritative than Alara's gentle tap. When Keira called permission to enter, the door opened to reveal Soren, the blonde beta she'd met in the forest, along with another woman whose silver-streaked auburn hair marked her as one of the council members from yesterday. "My lady," Soren said with a respectful bow, "the king requests your presence in his study when you're able. There are matters he wishes to discuss regarding your situation." The way she said situation sent warning bells through Kira's mind. "What matters?" The silver-haired woman stepped forward. "I am Reyna, first counselor to the king. Perhaps it would be better to speak privately?" Keira glanced at her children, who had stopped eating to watch the exchange with wary eyes. "Alara," she said quietly, "would you mind staying with the children while I'm gone?" "Of course, my lady." The servant's warm smile encompassed all three little ones. "Perhaps we could explore your new rooms? I believe there are some toys that were brought up earlier." Marcus perked up immediately, but Lily's grip tightened on Kira's sleeve. "You'll come back?" the little girl whispered. Keira cupped Lily's face with both hands. "I promise, sweetheart. I'm just going to talk to the king. I'll be back before you know it." It took several more minutes of reassurance before Lily finally released her, and even then, Keira felt the weight of 3 pairs of eyes watching her as she followed Soren and Reyna into the corridor. The castle was even more impressive by daylight. Soaring ceilings, beautiful tapestries, windows that let in floods of natural light. Servants moved through the halls with quiet efficiency, all of them pausing to bow when they saw her, murmuring, "My lady," with varying degrees of curiosity and respect. "They're staring," Keira muttered, uncomfortable with the attention. "You're the king's fated mate," Reyna said matter-of-factly. "Of course they're staring. Most thought he would never find you. Some believed he didn't have a fated mate at all." "Why?" Keira asked before she could stop herself. Reyna's expression softened slightly. "Our king has carried a heavy burden since taking the throne at 18 after his father's death. He's devoted himself entirely to his people, to rebuilding what was destroyed in the wars. Personal happiness has always been secondary to duty." She glanced at Keira. "Until yesterday." They arrived at a heavy wooden door guarded by 2 massive warriors who stepped aside. Immediately, Soren knocked twice before opening it. The study beyond was clearly Caspian's domain. Shelves lined with books and maps, a massive desk covered in scrolls and reports, weapons mounted on the walls alongside battle trophies. But what caught Kira's attention was the man himself, standing by the window with his back to them, tension evident in every line of his body. He turned at their entrance, and Kira's breath caught. In the forest, in the chaos of arrival, she hadn't fully appreciated how devastatingly handsome he was. Sunlight caught the silver streaks in his black hair, highlighted the sharp angles of his face, made his golden eyes seem to glow from within. He wore formal attire today, black leather and silver embroidery that marked his status, but somehow he made it look effortless. "Keira," he said, and the way her name sounded in his deep voice sent shivers down her spine. "Thank you for coming. I hope you slept well?" "Yes, thank you." She felt suddenly shy, aware of the fine clothes she now wore, of her still damp hair from the bath Alara had insisted she take. "The children are settling in." Something warm and pleased crossed his features. "Good, that's good." He gestured to the others. "You may leave us. I'll speak with Keira alone." Soren and Reyna exchanged glances but bowed and departed without argument. The door closed with a soft click, leaving Keira alone with the Alpha King who was supposedly her mate. The silence stretched between them, charged with awareness and the ever-present hum of the bond. Caspian moved closer, but stopped several feet away, respecting her space. "I need to be honest with you," he said finally. "The council met this morning. Word has spread about your arrival, about the mate bond, and about—" he hesitated. "About your inability to bear children." Ice flooded Kira's veins. "I see. And they want me removed. No, Caspian said sharply. They want reassurances. Explanations. Some are concerned. About the succession, yes. But others are genuinely supportive. The issue is complex. The issue is that I'm defective, Keira said flatly, old shame rising like bile in her throat. That I can't give you the heirs a king needs. That I'm... In 2 strides. Caspian closed the distance between them, his hands coming to rest on her shoulders. The contact sent electricity racing through her, the mate bond flaring to life with enough intensity to steal her breath. Stop, he commanded, his voice carrying alpha authority that made her wolf sit up and take notice. Then, more gently, please, stop calling yourself defective. You are not broken, Keira. You are perfect exactly as you are. I can't give you children, she whispered, tears threatening. How is that perfect for a queen? Because you've already given me something far more valuable, he replied, his golden eyes boring into hers with fierce intensity. You've given me hope, purpose beyond duty. The possibility of a future that isn't just endless responsibility but actual happiness. His hands slid down her arms to capture her hands, his thumbs stroking over her knuckles. I meant what I said yesterday. My nephews can inherit. The bloodline continues. But even if that weren't true, even if choosing you meant the end of my line, I would still choose you. Why? The question burst from her. You don't know me. The bond could be wrong, could fade. The bond doesn't fade, he interrupted. And it's not wrong. I've felt empty my entire adult life, Keira. Like something essential was missing, like I was only half alive. Then I caught your scent in that forest, saw you protecting those children with a fierceness that would put most warriors to shame, and everything inside me roared, mine. His grip tightened slightly. You're not a political inconvenience or a problem to be solved. You're my mate, my equal, my partner, and I will defend your place at my side against anyone who questions it. The declaration was so absolute, so fierce, that Keira couldn't find words. Instead, she found herself swaying forward, drawn by the mate bond and something deeper, something that whispered this man would keep his promises. Caspian's breath caught as she moved closer, his eyes tracking her movement with predatory focus. Keira, he murmured, her name a warning and a plea. If you come any closer, I'm going to kiss you. Maybe that's what I want, she heard herself say, the boldness foreign but exhilarating. His eyes flashed gold, his wolf rising to the surface. Are you sure? Because once I start, I'm not sure I'll be able to stop. In answer, Keira raised up on her toes and pressed her lips to his. The effect was instantaneous and overwhelming. The mate bond exploded between them like lightning, sending shockwaves through her entire body. Caspian's arms came around her, hauling her against his chest as he deepened the kiss with a hunger that matched her own. He tasted like winter and wildness, like coming home to a place she'd never been. His hands tangled in her hair, angling her head to take the kiss deeper, and Keira heard a sound escape her throat, something between a whimper and a moan. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Caspian rested his forehead against hers. This is real, he murmured, his voice rough with emotion. This connection between us, it's not just the bond. I feel it, Keira. You're mine, and I'm yours, and nothing else matters. The council, she started, but he silenced her with another quick, fierce kiss. The council will accept what I tell them to accept, he said firmly. You are my mate and my future queen. That's not negotiable. His hands cupped her face with heartbreaking gentleness. But I need to know what you want. Not what you think you should want. Not what's expected. What do you want, Keira? The question hung between them, massive in its implications. What did she want? Safety for her children, certainly. Protection from those who would hurt them. But beyond that, I want. She struggled to find the words. I want to believe this is real. That I'm not going to wake up back in Blackwater, cold and hungry and worthless. I want to stop waiting for this to be taken away. Then stop waiting, Caspian said. Choose to believe. Choose to stay. Choose this. Choose us. And I swear on my life and my throne that I will spend every day proving you made the right choice. Before Keira could respond, a sharp knock interrupted them. Soren's voice came through the door, tense with urgency. Your Majesty, forgive the interruption. But there's a situation that requires your immediate attention. Caspian's expression darkened, his jaw tightening with frustration. But he stepped back from Keira, his hand sliding down to capture hers. "Come with me," he said. "Whatever this is, we face it together." They emerged from the study to find Soren looking grim. "Alpha Ronan of Blackwater Pack has arrived at our borders with a full war party. He's demanding an audience with you and the return of his stolen property." Kira's blood turned to ice. "The children," she gasped. He's come for nothing," Caspian snarled, his eyes flashing gold with his wolf's fury. "Those children are under my protection, as are you. Ronan can demand all he wants. He'll get nothing but my refusal. He's claiming you violated pack law by harboring a rogue Omega and stolen cubs," Soren continued. "He's demanding formal pack justice, and he's brought 50 warriors to back his claim." Caspian's lips pulled back from his teeth in a feral snarl. "Then he'll learn what happens when someone threatens what's mine." He turned to Keira, his expression softening slightly. "Go to the children. Stay with them. I'll handle Ronan." "No," Keira said, surprising herself with her vehemence. "I won't hide while others fight my battles. If he's here because of me, I should face him." "Absolutely not," Caspian said flatly. "Ronan is dangerous, unstable. I won't risk—" "I'm not asking for permission," Keira interrupted, drawing on reserves of courage she didn't know she possessed. "Those children are my responsibility. If there's even a chance of resolving this without bloodshed, I need to be there. I need to try." Caspian looked ready to argue, his alpha instincts clearly warring with respect for her autonomy. "Finally," he growled. "Fine. But you stay behind me at all times, and if I tell you to run, you run. Understood?" Keira nodded, even as her heart raced with a mixture of fear and determination. They were about to face her worst nightmare, but this time, she wouldn't face it alone. This time, she had an Alpha King at her side, and the children she loved tucked safely away in a fortress that even Ronan couldn't breach. This time, she would not run. The great hall had been transformed into a formal audience chamber, with Caspian's throne positioned on the raised dais and his council flanking him on both sides. Guards lined the walls, their hands resting on weapons, their expressions hard and ready. Keira stood slightly behind and to the right of Caspian's throne, positioned where everyone could see she was under his protection. Her heart hammered as the massive doors swung open, and Alpha Ronan entered with a contingent of his warriors. She hadn't seen him in months, and the sight of him now made her wolf whimper with instinctive fear. He was a brutal man who had built his reputation on violence and intimidation. Massive shoulders, a face like carved granite, eyes that held no mercy or compassion. His scent rolled through the hall, sour with aggression and entitlement. Those cold eyes found her immediately, and his lips twisted into a cruel smile. "There she is, the defective little Omega who thought she could steal from me." Caspian's growl reverberated through the hall, making several of Ronan's warriors flinch. "You will address my mate with respect, or you will not address her at all." Shock rippled through the Blackwater warriors. Ronan's expression twisted with disbelief and fury. "Mate? That broken thing is your mate?" The temperature in the room seemed to drop by several degrees. Caspian rose from his throne with lethal grace, power radiating from him in waves that made even Keira's wolf bow in submission. "Choose your next words very carefully, Ronan," Caspian said, his voice deadly quiet. "You stand in my hall, on my territory, insulting my fated mate. Give me one reason why I shouldn't tear your throat out where you stand." Ronan's face flushed with rage, but even he wasn't foolish enough to directly challenge an Alpha King in his own territory. He reined in his temper with visible effort, forcing his voice into something approaching civility. "Forgive me, Your Majesty," he said, though the words dripped with insincerity. "I meant no disrespect to you. But that Omega fled my pack with 3 cubs that don't belong to her. She's a thief and a rogue. Pack law demands her return." "Pack law," Caspian repeated, his tone dangerously soft. He descended from the dais with predatory grace, each step calculated and precise. "Tell me, Ronan, what pack law allows an alpha to threaten children with death? What law permits putting a price on a mother's head for the crime of protecting those her pack abandoned?" Ronan's eyes narrowed. "She told you her version of events clearly. The truth is, That you deemed an Omega worthless, because she couldn't bear children, Caspian interrupted, his voice cutting like a blade. You called her defective, threatened to kill 3 innocent cubs, and drove them all into the forest to die. Those are the actions you took. Or are you going to stand in my hall and lie to my face? The challenge hung in the air, heavy and dangerous. Ronan's jaw clenched, his hands flexing at his sides. Those cubs were drains on pack resources, orphans with no value, no future. I made a practical decision for the good of my pack. You condemned children to death, Caspian snarled, and his eyes had gone full gold now, his wolf pressing close to the surface. And you drove away a woman whose only crime was having a heart big enough to care for the forgotten and unwanted. She's a broken Omega, Ronan spat, his own control slipping. She can't breed, can't shift properly, can barely feel her wolf. She's useless, and those cubs are equally worthless. I'm within my rights to reclaim my pack's property. The words hit Keira like physical blows. Property, worthless, broken. The same words that had haunted her for years, that had defined her existence in Blackwater. She felt herself shrinking, old patterns of shame and submission rising up to swallow her whole. Then Caspian's hand reached back, finding hers, lacing their fingers together. The contact was an anchor, a lifeline, pulling her back from the drowning darkness. You're within your rights to reclaim nothing, Caspian said, his voice absolute authority. Those children were abandoned by your pack. You relinquished all claim to them the moment you threatened their lives. And Keira renounced her membership in Blackwater when she fled your cruelty. She belongs to no pack but mine now. You can't just... Ronan started, but Caspian's roar cut him off. I can and I have. The Alpha King's voice rang through the hall with such power that several wolves in the room visibly submitted, necks baring in instinctive deference. Keira is my fated mate, marked by the moon goddess herself. Those children are under my protection as her family. You have no authority here, Ronan. None. The council will hear of this, Ronan threatened, desperation creeping into his voice. Other alphas won't stand for you harboring rogues and then let them come, Caspian growled. Let every alpha in this territory come and hear how you threatened children, how you drove away a woman, whose only crime was compassion. Let them judge which of us has violated the sacred laws of pack and honor. He took another step forward, and even from where she stood, Keira could feel the barely contained violence radiating from him. Or perhaps you'd like to challenge me directly. Take up your grievance in the old way? I'd be happy to settle this with tooth and claw. The offer hung in the air, and every person in the hall knew what it meant. A direct challenge between alphas, fought in wolf form, to the death or submission, and everyone knew who would win. Ronan was powerful, brutal, a fighter who had won his position through violence. But Caspian was an alpha king, born to the bloodline, carrying power that was almost mythical in its intensity. It wouldn't be a fight. It would be an execution. Ronan's face twisted with fury and humiliation, but he wasn't completely stupid. I withdraw my challenge, he forced out through clenched teeth. But mark my words, Your Majesty. This will not be forgotten. See that you don't forget, Caspian replied coldly. Because if you ever threaten my mate or her children again, if you so much as speak their names with anything less than respect, I will come to Blackwater personally, and I will show you exactly what happens to those who harm what's mine. His eyes blazed with promise and threat. Now get out of my territory before I change my mind about letting you leave in one piece. Ronan retreated with his warriors, his face purple with suppressed rage. The doors slammed behind them with a resounding boom that echoed through the suddenly silent hall. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Caspian turned, his fierce expression softening as his eyes found Keira. Are you all right? He asked gently, his thumb stroking over her knuckles where their hands were still joined. Keira nodded, unable to find words for what she was feeling. He had stood against another alpha for her, had defended not just her but her children, the little ones that the world deemed worthless, had declared to everyone present that she was his mate, his equal, worthy of protection and respect. Your Majesty, Reyna's voice interrupted carefully. If I may, there are implications to what just occurred. Ronan will spread word of this confrontation, and there will be questions from the other packs about my mate's inability to bear children. Caspian finished flatly. I'm aware, Reyna. Let them question. Let every Alpha and Luna in this territory come and voice their concerns. My answer will be the same. He turned to face his council, his hand still firmly holding Keira's, presenting a united front. Keira is my fated mate. The moon goddess chose her for me, and I accept that gift with gratitude and pride. Her fertility or lack thereof has no bearing on her worth as my mate, or her right to stand as my queen. But the succession, another council member began, is secure through my brother's sons, Caspian interrupted. I've already drawn up the documents. My eldest nephew will be named my heir. The bloodline continues. The throne is protected. Any other concerns? Malik, the young counselor who had been suspicious of her from the start, stepped forward. His expression was serious but not hostile. Your Majesty, forgive my bluntness, but the pack will need reassurance. A formal claiming, perhaps. Something that leaves no doubt about Lady Keira's status. Caspian's jaw tightened. A claiming requires the consent of both parties. I won't pressure Keira into, I consent. Keira heard herself say, the words emerging before she could second-guess them. Every eye in the hall turned to her, and she fought the urge to hide behind Caspian. Instead, she straightened her spine and lifted her chin. If a formal claiming will end the questions about my place here, then I consent. Caspian turned to her, his golden eyes searching her face with an intensity that stole her breath. Keira, you don't have to do this. Not for politics, not for the pack. A claiming is permanent, binding. It means I'm choosing you, she interrupted softly. Choosing this. Choosing us. Her voice grew stronger. I've spent 6 years believing I was broken, worthless, less than nothing. You've shown me in 2 days that none of that was true. You've protected my children, defended my honor, offered me a home and a future I never dreamed possible. Tears gathered in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. So yes, I consent to the claiming. I want everyone to know that I'm yours, and you're mine. The smile that broke across Caspian's face was like sunrise, brilliant and warm and utterly transformative. Then we do this now, he declared, his voice ringing with authority and joy. Witness, all of you. I, Caspian Ashmore, Alpha King of the Wintermoon Territory, claim Keira as my mate, my queen, and my equal before the moon goddess, and this pack. He pulled her close, one hand, cupping her face while the other wrapped around her waist. Last chance to run, he murmured, low enough that only she could hear. Once I mark you, you're stuck with me forever. Good, Keira whispered back. I'm tired of running. His kiss was fierce and possessive, claiming her mouth with a hunger that made her knees weak. The mate bond between them exploded with intensity, flooding her system with heat and light, and a connection so profound it felt like their souls were merging. When he pulled back, his eyes were pure molten gold, his wolf fully present and demanding. Do you trust me? He asked, his voice rough with barely contained need. Yes, Keira breathed, and she meant it with every fiber of her being. Caspian's hand slid to the back of her neck, tilting her head to expose the vulnerable curve where her neck met her shoulder. She felt his breath hot against her skin, felt the scrape of lengthening canines, and then the sharp, searing pain of his bite. The claiming mark, the bond that had been humming between them since that first moment in the forest, suddenly snapped into place with devastating completeness. Keira cried out, not from pain but from the overwhelming sensation of Caspian flooding into her mind, her soul, her very essence. She could feel his emotions, his fierce protectiveness, his deep and abiding affection. Could sense his wolf's absolute certainty that she was his mate, his queen, his everything. And beneath it all, threading through every sensation, was his complete and utter acceptance of her exactly as she was. Not broken, not defective, perfect. When he finally released her neck, Keira felt fundamentally changed. The mark on her throat burned with a pleasant heat, and she could feel it, the permanent evidence of their bond visible for all to see. She touched it with trembling fingers and felt Caspian's satisfaction echo through their new connection. Mine, he murmured against her ear, the word a promise and a vow. Forever, mine. Yours, she agreed, turning her face to capture his lips in another kiss. And you're mine. The hall erupted in cheers and howls, the pack celebrating their king's claiming of his mate. But Keira barely heard them. lost in the golden eyes of the man who had saved her, protected her, and shown her that her worth had never been tied to her ability to bear children. When they finally broke apart, both breathless and glowing with the aftermath of the claiming, Caspian turned to address his pack. Let word spread to every territory, every pack, every lone wolf who might question. This woman is my mate, and your queen. Her children are now children of the royal household, under the protection of my throne and my name. Anyone who threatens them, threatens me personally, and I protect what's mine. The vow resonated through the hall, absolute and unbreakable. Keira felt tears finally spill over, but they were tears of relief, of joy, of gratitude so profound she couldn't contain it. The children, she whispered to Caspian. I need to see them. They'll have heard the commotion. They'll be frightened. Go, he said immediately, pressing a kiss to her forehead. I'll join you shortly. There are formalities to conclude here, but they won't take long. Keira hurried from the hall, her hand touching the mark on her neck repeatedly, still hardly believing it was real. She found the children exactly where she'd left them, huddled together in the sitting room with Alara standing guard. All three small faces were pale with worry. Keira! Finn launched himself at her, and she caught him, pulling him close. Marcus and Lily were right behind him, and suddenly she was surrounded by small bodies and frightened questions. Is the bad man gone? Marcus asked. Are we safe? Lily whispered. Did he hurt you? Finn's small hands patted her face, checking for injuries. I'm fine, Keira assured them, sinking to the floor so she could hold all three at once. The bad man is gone, and he's never coming back. King Caspian sent him away. We're safe, all of us. Forever? Lily asked, her serious eyes searching Kira's face. You promise we're safe forever? Keira touched the mark on her neck, feeling the bond pulse with warmth and certainty. Forever, she confirmed. King Caspian has claimed me as his mate. That means you're all part of the royal family now. No one can take you away. No one can hurt you. You have a home here for as long as you want it. What's a mate? Marcus asked, curious despite his lingering fear. It means Keira and the king are married, Lily explained with the wisdom of her 8 years. She looked at Keira. Like a real family? Like a real family, Keira confirmed, pulling them all closer. The king wants to protect you, to give you a good life, to watch you grow up safe and loved. If you'll let him. He's really nice, Marcus said thoughtfully. And he's really big. Nobody would mess with him. He called me a warrior, Finn added, his face brightening. Can I be a warrior when I grow up? You can be anything you want, a deep voice said from the doorway, and they all turned to find Caspian standing there, his imposing form somehow gentle as he looked at the children. A warrior, a scholar, a healer, a farmer, whatever brings you joy and purpose. He moved into the room slowly, giving the children time to adjust to his presence. I know I'm a stranger to you, he said, crouching down to their level. I know you have no reason to trust me beyond Keira's word, but I want you to know something important. His golden eyes were serious and sincere. I'm going to be here, every day, for as long as you need me. I'm going to protect you, provide for you, and help you become whatever you want to be. Not because I have to, but because you're Keira's family, and Keira is my mate. That makes you my family too. Finn, brave and trusting in the way only 4-year-olds can be, reached out and touched Caspian's hand. Can you teach me to be strong like you? Caspian's expression softened into something achingly tender. I can teach you to be strong, he agreed. And brave, and kind, and honorable. All the things a good man needs to be. What about us? Marcus asked. Can girls be warriors too? The fiercest warriors I know are women, Caspian replied seriously, glancing at Lily. Strength comes in many forms. Each of you will find your own. Lily, still cautious but visibly warming, asked quietly, Are you going to be mean to Keira? Some alphas are mean. The question hung in the air, heavy with the weight of what these children had witnessed in their short lives. Caspian's jaw tightened, but his voice remained gentle. Never, he said firmly. Keira is my mate, my equal, the other half of my soul. I will cherish her, protect her, and love her for the rest of my life. And if I ever do anything that hurts her, I give you all permission to tell me so." He looked at each child in turn. "Part of being family means we take care of each other. That includes making sure I treat Keira the way she deserves." The answer seemed to satisfy Lily, because she nodded slowly. "Okay, then I guess you can stay." Caspian's lips twitched with amusement. "I'm honored by your approval, Lady Lily." Over the following weeks, Keira watched in amazement as her impossible new life took shape. The children flourished under the castle's care and protection. Marcus discovered a love for the stables and spent hours with the horses, learning their care from the patient stable master. Finn attached himself to the castle guards, convinced he was training to be a warrior despite his tiny size. And Lily, cautious Lily, slowly opened up under the gentle tutelage of Elder Mira, who recognized a gift for healing in the young girl. But more than that, Keira watched Caspian keep every promise he'd made. He carved time from his impossibly busy schedule to eat meals with them, to hear about their days, to answer their endless questions. He taught Marcus to ride, carried Finn on his shoulders through the castle grounds, and sat patiently while Lily practiced her healing techniques on his imaginary injuries. He was present, engaged, genuinely invested in their happiness. Not out of obligation to Keira, but because he had opened his heart to these 3 forgotten children and claimed them as his own. And with her, in the quiet moments when the children were asleep and they were alone, he was everything she'd never dared dream of. Patient with her lingering fears, gentle with her healing heart, passionate in ways that made her body sing and her soul soar. The mate bond between them grew stronger each day, a constant presence in her mind that brought comfort and connection. Through it, she could feel his emotions, his thoughts, his absolute devotion to her and their little family. Her wolf, dormant for so long, grew stronger too. Not back to what she'd been before the fever, but something new, something shaped by the mate bond and Caspian's unwavering support. She could shift now, though it took effort and left her exhausted. But each time was easier, and Elder Mira assured her that with time and practice, she might regain most of what she'd lost. One evening, a month after her arrival, Keira stood on the balcony of the royal chambers, watching the sun set over the mountains and marveling at how much had changed. Warm arms wrapped around her from behind, and Caspian's scent enveloped her as he pulled her back against his chest. "What are you thinking about?" he murmured against her hair. "How different everything is." She replied softly. "A month ago, I was running through the forest, convinced I was going to die, convinced the children would die. And now you're standing in the home you'll never have to leave," Caspian finished. "Safe, protected, loved." Loved. He'd started saying the word a week ago, cautiously at first, as if testing her. Reaction. Now he said it freely, and each time it made her heart squeeze with emotion. "I love you too," she said, turning in his arms to face him. "I know I haven't said it enough, but I do. You've given me everything I thought I'd lost forever. Hope, safety, family, purpose." She touched the mark on her neck, now a silvery scar that proclaimed her as his. "You've given me myself back." Caspian's eyes blazed gold as he gazed down at her. "You were never lost, my heart, just waiting to be found." He cupped her face with both hands, his touch infinitely gentle. "And I will spend the rest of my very long life making sure you never doubt your worth again. Our children will be lucky to have you as a father," Keira said softly, then caught herself. "I mean the children Lily and Marcus and Finn." "Are our children," Caspian interrupted firmly. "Blood doesn't make a family, Keira. Love does. Choice does. Those 3 are mine just as surely as they're yours. I'll sign the formal adoption papers tomorrow if you'll allow it." Fresh tears spilled down Keira's cheeks. "They'd love that. So would I." "Good." He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, the tip of her nose. "And who knows? Elder Mira says the mate bond is still strengthening your wolf, still healing old damage. Maybe one day." "Maybe," Keira agreed, but the desperate need for it wasn't there anymore. She'd learned that her worth wasn't tied to her womb, that motherhood came in many forms, that the family she'd chosen was just as real and precious as any she might have birthed. "But if not, I have everything I need already." Caspian corrected. "We have everything we need." From inside the chambers came the sound of small feet running, and Finn's excited voice calling, "Keira, Papa Caspian, come quick." Marcus taught his horse a trick. Papa Caspian. The title had started hesitantly, but now all 3 children used it freely. And every time, Keira saw the flash of emotion in her mate's eyes, the fierce joy at being claimed by these little ones just as surely as he'd claimed them. "We should go see," Keira said, smiling through her tears. In a moment, Caspian pulled her close, resting his forehead against hers. "First, let me say this. Thank you, Keira. For trusting me, for choosing me, for giving me a family I never knew I needed. You've brought light into corners of my life I didn't even know were dark." "You saved us," Keira replied. "You saved me, not just from Ronan, but from believing I was broken beyond repair." "You saved yourself," he corrected, "by being brave enough to run, to fight, to protect what mattered. I just gave you a safe place to land." He kissed her then, slow and deep and full of promise. "Now and always, you have a home here. You have a family. You have a mate who adores you. And you have 3 children who need to show us a horse trick before bedtime." Laughing, crying, overflowing with joy, Keira let him lead her inside. To their children, their family, their life together. She'd been told she was broken, defective, worthless. She'd believed it for so long that it had become truth in her mind. But standing in the royal chambers with her mate's hand in hers and her children's laughter ringing through the halls, Keira finally understood what Caspian had been trying to tell her from the beginning. She wasn't broken. She was exactly who she was meant to be. And she was loved, fiercely and completely, just as she was. 3 months had passed since that day in the Great Hall when Caspian had claimed her before the entire pack. 3 months of learning what it meant to be loved unconditionally, to be valued for who she was rather than what her body could or couldn't do. 3 months of watching her children transform from frightened, skittish waifs into confident, joyful youngsters who knew they were safe. But tonight was different. Tonight, under the light of the full moon, Keira stood in the royal gardens with her heart hammering and her wolf stirring with unusual strength. "Are you certain about this?" Elder Mira asked, her ancient eyes studying Keira with professional concern. Attempting a full shift so soon after the bond's strengthening could be dangerous. "Your wolf is still healing." "I'm certain," Keira said, though anxiety twisted in her stomach. She glanced at Caspian, who stood a few feet away, his expression carefully neutral, but his eyes blazing with worry through their bond. "I need to know. I need to see if I can really do this." In the months since their claiming, Keira's wolf had grown stronger, more present. She could shift partially now, could call on enhanced strength and senses when needed. But a full transformation, a complete shift into wolf form, that she hadn't managed since before the fever 6 years ago. Until tonight, when her wolf had woken with the full moon's rise and demanded to run beside her mate. "I'll be right here," Caspian promised, and through their bond she felt his unwavering support mixed with fierce protectiveness. "If anything goes wrong—" "Nothing will go wrong," Keira interrupted, trying to sound more confident than she felt. She closed her eyes, reaching deep inside for the wolf that had been broken for so long. "I can feel her. She's ready." And she was. Her wolf pressed against her consciousness with an urgency Keira had never felt before, whining and pawing, desperate to emerge, not from fear or pain, but from joy. From the simple desire to run free under the moonlight with her mate, Keira let go. The transformation that had once been agonizing, that had left her screaming and broken on the ground, flowed through her like water. Bones shifted, reformed, reshaped with barely a twinge of discomfort. Fur sprouted across her skin in a wave of silver and white. Her senses exploded outward, suddenly able to smell every flower in the garden, hear the heartbeat of the mouse hiding in the hedgerow, see in perfect clarity despite the darkness. When it was over, Keira stood on 4 legs for the first time in 6 years. She was smaller than Caspian's massive black wolf, more delicate in build. Her fur was silver-white like moonlight, with darker gray markings along her spine. But she was whole, strong, unbroken. A howl of pure triumph erupted from her throat, echoing across the castle grounds. Within seconds, answering howls rose from throughout the territory, the pack celebrating their queen's first shift. Caspian shifted in a fluid blur of motion, and suddenly his enormous black wolf stood before her, his golden eyes blazing with pride and love and fierce satisfaction. He approached slowly, reverently, pressing his massive head against her, smaller one in a gesture of affection and respect. Beautiful. His voice echoed through the mate bond, clear and strong in her mind. My beautiful, fierce mate. I knew you could do it. I couldn't have without you, she replied, marveling at how easily the mental communication came. Now, without the bond, without your faith in me. You always had the strength, he countered. I just helped you remember it. Elder Mira's voice called from behind them, thick with emotion. Magnificent. Your Majesty, Lady Keira, this is truly remarkable. The healing the bond has achieved, it's unprecedented in my lifetime. But Keira barely heard her. Her wolf was thrumming with energy, with the desperate need to run, to hunt, to feel alive in a way she hadn't in years. She looked at Caspian, her intentions clear through the bond. His wolf's tongue lolled in what could only be described as a grin. Then let's run, my heart. The forest awaits. They ran. Through the gardens, past the castle walls, into the forest that bordered the territory. Caspian kept pace beside her, never pulling ahead despite his superior size and strength, content to run at her side as equals. The wind in her fur, the earth beneath her paws, the pure joy of movement without pain or limitation, it was intoxicating. They ran until Keira's muscles burned with exertion, until her lungs screamed for air, until she felt more alive than she had in years. When they finally stopped by a moonlit stream, both wolves panting and exhilarated, Keira felt something shift inside her chest. She shifted back to human form, not caring about her nakedness in the privacy of the forest, and Caspian followed suit. He pulled her immediately into his arms, and she went willingly, pressing her face against his chest and letting the tears finally fall. Thank you, she whispered brokenly. Thank you for not giving up on me, for believing I could heal, for loving me when I couldn't love myself. Always, he murmured against her hair, his arms tightening around her. I will always believe in you, Keira. Always love you. Always stand beside you. He pulled back enough to tilt her face up, his golden eyes intense in the moonlight. You've given me so much. Not just a mate, but a family, a purpose beyond, duty, a reason to build a future instead of just maintaining the present. The children adore you, Keira said softly. Did you see Finn's face when you taught him that defensive stance yesterday? He thinks you hung the moon. Caspian's expression turned tender, and Lily finally called me Papa without hesitation. Just Papa, can you help me with this? As naturally as breathing. I nearly lost my composure entirely. Keira laughed through her tears. Marcus wants to name his first horse after you. He's been debating whether King or Caspian sounds more impressive. They're remarkable children, Caspian said. Strong, resilient, kind despite everything they've endured. They're going to grow into extraordinary adults. His hand came to rest on her lower abdomen, his touch gentle and reverent. And whether or not we have children of our own blood, we have a family, Keira. A real, beautiful, perfect family. The gesture, the placement of his hand, made Kira's breath catch. Caspian, I need to tell you something. His eyes sharpened, concern flickering through the bond. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong, she said quickly. At least, I don't think so. But Elder Mira has been monitoring my healing, and she said something yesterday that I haven't been able to stop thinking about. What did she say? His voice was carefully neutral, but she could feel his tension. Keira took a deep breath. She said that the mate bond has healed more than she thought possible, that the scarring from the fever has reduced significantly, that my wolf is not just stronger, but that my body is regenerating in ways that shouldn't be medically possible. She met his eyes. She said there's a chance, a small one, that I might be able to conceive after all. The words hung between them, heavy with possibility and hope and fear. Caspian's hand remained on her abdomen, his expression unreadable. And how do you feel about that? He asked carefully. Keira, I need you to know that this changes nothing for me. Whether you can conceive or not, whether we have biological children or not, it doesn't matter. We have our family. We have everything we need. I know, she said, and she meant it. The desperate need to prove her worth through fertility was gone, healed along with her wolf. I know that, and it's why I can actually let myself hope, because I know I'm not broken, even if nothing changes. I know I'm worthy, even if my body never heals completely. I know our family is real and complete exactly as it is. But, Caspian prompted gently. But the possibility, Keira continued, her voice thick with emotion. The idea that maybe, one day, I could give you a child that shares both our bloodlines, that carries your eyes and my stubborn determination, that's a product of this love we've built. It's not necessary, but it would be beautiful. A gift I never thought I'd be able to give. Caspian's eyes blazed gold, and through the bond she felt the surge of his emotion. Love, fierce and all-consuming. Hope, fragile but growing. And beneath it all, absolute certainty that she was his everything. Children or no children. Then we hope, he said simply. We let your body continue healing. We see what the future brings. And if the moon goddess blesses us with a biological child, we'll welcome them with joy. And if not, we already have 3 perfect children who need us just as much as any infant would. I love you, Keira whispered. I love you so much it terrifies me sometimes. Good, Caspian replied, his lips curving into that rare, brilliant smile that transformed his entire face. Because I love you just as fiercely, and I intend to spend the rest of my very long life proving it to you every single day. He kissed her then, deep and claiming, a reaffirmation of the bond between them. When they finally broke apart, both breathless and glowing with the aftermath, Keira felt her wolf stir contentedly inside her. Not broken, not damaged, whole. We should get back, she said reluctantly. The children will want to hear about my first shift. Finn has been asking every day when I'll be able to run with you. Then tomorrow night, weather permitting, we all run together, Caspian declared. The royal family, united under the moon. The royal family. 3 adopted children who had been deemed worthless by the pack that birthed them. A queen who had been called defective and barren. And a king who had chosen love over tradition, family over bloodlines, and had built something more precious than any throne or title. As they walked back through the forest, hand in hand, Keira reflected on how far she'd come. From a broken Omega fleeing for her life to a queen standing beside her mate, whole and healed and stronger than she'd ever been. She'd learned that worth wasn't measured in fertility or perfection. That family was built through love and choice, not just blood. That sometimes the most broken parts of ourselves could heal in ways we never imagined possible when we finally found someone who saw us, truly saw us, and loved us anyway. I can't bear children. She had whispered that first day, terrified of rejection. Then I'll protect yours, he had replied, and he had kept that promise every day since. But now, walking through the moonlit forest with her mate's hand in hers and hope blooming in her chest, Keira allowed herself to dream of a different future. One where maybe, just maybe, the moon goddess had one more gift to give. Either way, she knew with absolute certainty that she had everything she needed. She had love, she had family, she had home, and she was exactly who she was meant to be. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.